Yo, what is going on, guys? It's Gabe,
It's Caleb.
and today you are watching another episode of the Positive Outlook podcast. And Caleb, what does every great episode start with?
Starts with a question of the day, and today it is my turn. You ready
Yes,
for this?
I am.
Pancakes or waffles?
Ooh, okay. Here's the thing. I've always been a pancakes guy. Now,
Okay.
I enjoy a good waffle here and there, but like a waffle's good on its own with like fruit on it, right? Or like if you ever do, well, I guess okay. Never mind. Pancakes are better if you do like the Oreo pancakes. You ever had those before?
I have not had those. Those sound
No.
pretty good.
We have a Bob Evans here in town, and I remember we went down to Detroit one time, and we went to their Bob Evans, and theirs was just like 30 times better. Because I would always get the Oreo pancakes when I was a kid, and when we went to Detroit, I got the Oreo pancakes in Detroit, and they were just like infinitely better. And I'm like, it ruined my experience here in town. Like, I don't ever want to go back to the one here.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What
Okay.
What about you?
Waffles all the way. All
Really?
the way. There's so much more versatility and like thinking about all the different kinds of waffles and just how much better they are than pancakes.
Yeah.
I mean, you got Belgian waffles, you got non-Belgian waffles. I'm not a waffle expert. I don't know all the types of
Yeah.
waffles, but they're so good. I love waffles.
Yeah. All right. Well, let us know down in the comments below if you are a waffle or a pancake lover. I'm team pancake, he's team waffle. It's like in when was that? Like 2010 when Twilight came out. It was like team Jacob or team Edward. By the way, which one were
Yeah.
you?
Oh, I don't watch Twilight, but Team
What?
J.
Team Jacob? All right, all right. I'm with
No,
you. But
I
once I
reject that
matured,
statement.
yeah, once
I
I
don't.
matured, I was team Edward. Mhm. Whatever. Bella treated them both wrong. All right, let's move on. So so what are we talking about today?
Today we're talking about resistance versus resilience.
All right. So I don't know if you want to go into this like I'll define one, you define the other. Which one would you rather define?
Um, I'll talk about resistance if you want to talk about resilience.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay.
So I'll start with resilience. So resilience is the willingness or the ability to adapt, whether that be us as human beings to our situations, or you just take in a simple idea like a rubber band, right? Elasticity, right? How you can stretch it out long, make it wide, put it in the freezer, make it cold, heat it up. No matter what, once it comes back to its homeostasis, it's always going to be back to where it started, right? Basically, you can throw anything you want at it, but eventually I mean, you can always do too much, right? You can always do too much, and eventually the rubber band will snap. But we as humans are a little bit more resilient than that, and we'll typically always go back to where we were as long as we have the proper practices in place, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
100%. And how would you say resilience plays a role in your life?
man, resilience is it's a I guess it's a very trade-off kind of personality type to have because here's the thing: you can build up resilience to situations. So say it's your health and you're working out at the gym, yada yada. Certain things aren't working for you, so you start to adapt. You start to change your approach. You start to have some flexibility, and then you succeed in that challenge. Now, there's other things in your life, like if you struggle with anxiety or depression, and then here comes avoidance, because that's what resilience is in that point. So, say that there's something that you're afraid of tackling because you're not sure if you can accomplish it, or something that scares you, and instead of tackling it head on because you feel like that's the right thing to do, instead of doing that, you kind of avoid it and you kind of shift that way, and that's your way that you're adapting. So there's good resilience and there's bad resilience. You just have to hone in on which one that you should be doing. Because honestly, when it comes to challenges in your adult life, and we talk about this a lot, is that we don't necessarily have somebody watching over us all the time that's telling us the right or wrong thing to do. And so, or that there's a deadline in place. So what we do most of the time is if we can avoid it, we'll avoid it. And
Mm-hmm.
that's a terrible habit to develop because it just reinforces that fear of failure, or it reinforces whatever negative perspective you have on that situation. And the more you avoid it, the more you avoid it, the more you avoid it, the more it becomes true that it's going to become more harmful the next time you do it. So
100%.
so, in that instance, you need to form a better type of resilience where it's more so like, okay, I'm scared of the situation, but how am I going to deal with my fear while I'm doing it? How am I going to deal with me not wanting to get out of bed to go to the gym in the morning? You know what I mean? That's how we're going to have to switch it.
And this is where you can get creative. I mean, you know
Hmm.
yourself better than anybody. And so that use that to your advantage rather than your disadvantage. It's easy to kind of hyper focus on things that are like, okay, well, I know this isn't going to work because I usually do this. Well, if you usually do this, well, now you know what you're going up against, and now you have the best opportunity to find some way to overcome whatever that objection is.
Yeah. And also, I mean, you can just have fun with it. Start throwing poop at the wall and see what sticks, right? Like that's all you have to do. Don't add any pressure to it. I know I can't remember who it was. There was a writer who basically he would struggle a lot. He would run into writer's blocks, he would struggle with discipline, he would struggle with consistency. So what he would do, he would lock himself in a room, no phone, nothing in the room other than a pen and a piece of paper. And he would tell himself, you don't have to write. You just have to sit in here for 2 hours. That's all you have to do. You don't have to write anything. Just sit here for 2 hours. And eventually you'll find that you'll just start writing. And that's the same thing. If you struggle with the gym, whatever, you're like, all right, well, let's go to the gym. You don't have to work out, but you can't do anything else. And you'll find that you're just going to start filling in your boredom with that. And eventually you'll find passion in it, which I thought was a really cool tip.
Yeah, I actually read about that one just
Mm-hmm.
recently when I was, I think it was right before we were doing our last habits episode.
Mm-hmm.
No, it was the procrastination one. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's a pretty cool trick.
Yeah.
Um, and I mean, honestly, anything to just try and remove the distractions is really key, and it's a lot easier said than done. And I'm someone I would say I've never really struggled with distractions, but as of now, I'm kind of having to weed out my distractions so they don't cover my garden. You know, we
Yeah.
got to keep that garden streak going per
Yep.
episode.
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
and so I definitely understand, but that's kind of where you have to shift your focus back on building that resilience as opposed to the wrong kind of resilience.
Right. Yeah. And now we can kind of switch into resilience versus resistance in a situation. So my perspective on it is that resistance will eventually make you snap because there's no leeway. You're not willing to give it all. Whereas resilience allows you to mold with the wind, with the storm, and allows you to kind of bend and sway so that when the storm passes, you're right back up. Whereas if you're a giant oak tree, it's going to snap. Big storm comes, you're just going to snap and fly away. No matter how big and strong you feel or look, if you're not gonna allow any give, eventually you're going to snap.
And so to define resistance, we're looking at the refusal to accept or comply with something, or the attempt to prevent something by action or argument. That's the textbook definition. And I do think it's important to have the ability to resist things. I think
Mhm.
resistance in and of itself can be a beneficial tool, but I do agree that resilience should be the goal, while resistance is kind of like a side tool. It shouldn't be your
Right.
main focus is to resist everything around you. But obviously there is benefits in resistance, like how we focus on the positives of resilience. We can have the positives of resistance where we're resisting negative things.
Right.
But overall, I do agree. You try too hard to resist the way things are moving, and you end up just hurting yourself along the way.
Right. Yeah, so how I like to see it is most people in their lives have a set idea on who they are, what they're accepting, what their standard is, and most people call that their identity. But those are kind of the key points there. So in your identity, you have your goals, you have your ambitions, you have your standards. So when something is opposing that, if something is opposing your standard in your life, right? So we'll just say career, for example. If you're like, hey, I want to make $30 an hour, and I'm firm on that. That's all I want. And then you're out there looking in the job market, you're applying to a ton of jobs and you're just not getting anything back on it. Well, maybe you have to reflect just a little bit and say, okay, maybe I have to take in the account of the economy because that's always changing, job availability, job growth, unemployment, everything else that's coming in, inflation, and maybe right now it's just realistic for me to kind of lower my standard a little bit, go for like $27 an hour, right? Because if I continue to look 30, 30, 30 everywhere and I'm not getting anything, and you're just jobless at this point, you're not working, whatever, that's going to create a bigger toll on you than if you're willing to just adapt and willing to move to that lower level because of external forces. And now,
And
obviously, I think everybody should be going for their highest ability, never settle for less than what you can be, but sometimes things are out of your control.
And that's where you can build up resilience in another sense where, okay, if nothing's changing about the job market, maybe you have to change your skill set. Maybe you have to look in and see what you can do
Yep.
to up your value, as opposed to just resisting that and going, no, no, I'm this, so I'm only going to be looking for this.
Yeah, right. And it's really important to see things as they are, not for what you make them out to be. So basically, in that situation, right? You're like, well, I know I'm capable of yada yada yada, but you're not the employer. You're not the company. You're not the economy. You're not all of those things that are happening. The external forces. You're just you. So sometimes you just have to sway a little bit. And to be honest with you, it's not a sign of weakness. It's not a sign of weakness to let yourself kind of get pulled back by things. It's not a sign of weakness. And eventually you're going to have to sway. If you always stand firm, if you're always resisting everything and just being like, everybody knows that guy, right? Like, my way or the highway, buddy. You know what I mean? So everybody knows somebody like that. Um, and you have to allow yourself to blow with the wind and allow yourself to be um pushed into where you should belong while working towards becoming what you want, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and the resistance part can come from your roots, come from your core, come from the things that should never change about you, the things that, that drive,
Right.
that's deep down keeps you going, your overall purpose.
Mhm.
But it's along the way that, as you were saying, you have to kind of go with the wind. And you're still in control of the direction. It's kind of like we talked about the Niagara effect. You're not
Yep.
letting the river carry you down, but when the current lines up with your direction, you don't fight the current just to fight the current. And
Right.
there's a lot of people that'll do that, and I'm guilty of it quite a bit here and there. I'll be like, no, the right thing to do is just to stand out from everybody, and so I'll be fighting the current, and then I'm just exhausted and burnt out, and I'm
Yeah.
confused why all of a sudden the river's carrying me, and it's like, well, maybe if you stay away from just fighting to fight and
Yeah.
kind of allow a little bit of balance there, it would work out a heck of a lot better.
Right. Yeah, I like that. And then, so in these situations that we're talking about here, it's really important as well to reframe your setbacks. So,
Mm.
if you see that as a setback, right, you're not able to just jump right into what you planned on going to, right? You had a standard. Obviously, the external forces are preventing you from reaching that standard. So you have to settle for something lower. Reframe that setback. Don't see it necessarily as like, oh, I'm just not capable. I'm a loser, yada, yada. See it as like, okay, maybe this challenge is going to be a little bit harder than I expected, but see it as an opportunity. Say this is an opportunity for me to prove myself now. This is an opportunity for me to grow. Maybe I've been losing, maybe I've been incapable because I'm supposed to be where I'm at today. And now where I'm at today, the challenge that I'm facing is just going to be another stepping stone towards my personal growth and towards my success, you know?
And when you have those setbacks, the one of the best ways to reframe it is to start by not being too hard on yourself. I mean, we
Yeah.
we all make mistakes, as we've talked about a million times on this
Mhm.
podcast, and it's pretty tough to bounce back from those things, especially when we know we're the catalyst for our problems.
Yeah.
It's really difficult, but that's really where it's most important to focus on reframing and just trying to step out of your own head about it, because I mean, you'll let yourself, if you're as hard as a critic as I can be on myself, like you'll eat yourself alive,
Yeah.
and that's not going to help you moving forward.
Right. Yeah, you got to practice mindfulness. You got to stop and smell the roses because sometimes you'll be chasing a goal for so long and you lose sight of where you even started. And you'll understand, like, hey, I was way back here. Now I'm only halfway there. But all I see is that I'm still not there yet. But I'm not focusing on the growth I've already had. I'm not focusing on not even what I'm missing or like uh, my physical belongings that I've lost along the way, but more so who have I become, right? And who am I turning into from this journey? And that's what's important, right? Because like we were talking about, if you're climbing a mountain, you start at the base, you get to the top, that's that's cool. It's cool that you made it to the top of the mountain that you can see the view, but once you get to the top and you see the view, you're like, wow, it's awesome who I became along the way. And then if you fall right back down that mountain, it's like, well, what did I learn? Right? What footholds did I place in supports that I shouldn't have believed in? What did I learn when I made it to the bottom and I was all alone and I'm hurting and I'm like, who's here for me? Right? So there's something to learn in everything. And I think there's a lot of value and a lot of missed potential in learning from your successes. Because everyone always says, "Oh, failure is such a good teacher. Failure is going to teach you so much." But what do you learn from your success? And I feel like most people just hit that success and they say, "I did it. I know I'm capable. I don't need to learn anything from it because I can obviously do it." And then they do it and they do it and they do it and then they run into just a chain of successes, which is awesome. But then what happens when you run into a hardship or a failure, right? You're not warmed up to it. You haven't built up that resilience. And now you have this resistance where you're like, no, 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 no. I'm a winner. I don't fail. I only succeed. This isn't what's happening. And then they almost turn into like that denial stage with it.
And that's where, when you're not learning along the way, you're building up a foundation on sand. And once you get to the top, once you've starting to put that roof together, you get confused because your house falls apart.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you have to go back and figure out, well, this is why. It's because you've been building it up on sand the whole time. You got to find a rock to build it off of. That way, if it crumbles, rebuilding, you'll have your house again. And the thing is, sometimes you have to pick up and change the plot of land that you're building your house on, and it's
Mm-hmm.
a hard reality to accept, especially when you have pride and look at my mansion that I built, and then it falls apart.
Yeah.
But that's the humbling aspect of it, and that's where you have to be more resilient than resistant. Because
Yeah.
if you're too resistant in these scenarios, you're just going to keep trying to build back up on the sand. No, this will work the thousandth time. I'm telling you. And what do you know? It's going to crumble again. So why don't you try to change your location?
Yeah. I think this is the most important point that I've come to the conclusion with this, and is what I want to end you guys with, is that when you're going through these situations in life, no matter what you're facing, you're developing skills, you're developing habits, you're building your character, you're shaping your identity into somebody who you should be proud of. Now, one day it's very possible that everything that you own will be taken from you. You know, you could lose all your money, you could lose your friends, you could lose your family, everything can be taken from you. But it's going to be just you at the end of the day. So make sure that that person who is sitting there with nothing can rebuild and is strong enough to take care of themselves and move forward on the right foot.
And the truth is, you are. Every one of us is, even if it doesn't feel like it,
Mhm.
even if it takes a year, 2 years, just know that it gets better eventually.
Yeah, absolutely. So, other than that, I know it's kind of short and sweet, but do you have anything else you want to add to today's episode?
Guys, if you made it this far, you've got to hit the like and subscribe. Let Gabe and I do this as a full-time gig because that would be
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
Um,
We'd love to increase
and
the production quality and be able to sit and chat with you guys, do some live stream stuff like that.
100%. And also, just again, make sure to focus on that resilience. Resistance is not a bad thing. Just don't rely on resistance
Hmm.
because you're not going to get anywhere. If you refuse to accept things, you're going to be stuck right where you're at.
Yep. Allow yourself to be flexible in your approach. It's not a sign of weakness to give in. Allow yourself to just stay true to who you are and move forward. So, other than that, I hope that you guys have a awesome week and happy Monday.
Happy Monday.
Peace.